Hey, what is up, guys? We are live here with Pro Play Games, and we're coming at you with a 19th place, first ever regional license exam for My Hero Academia, 700 player event done via webcam. And this is the boy that we decided to take to the table, Mr. Sugar Rush himself, Sugar Boy, Rikido Sato. So I'm doing this profile even though I missed top 16 because I felt like this was like a great beginner deck, so if you come from like a different game, I think this was a pretty easy character to pick up. There's a lot of intricacies in this game, a lot of combo decks out there that might, intimidate newer players, and I think this is a great starter if you're trying to get into the game. He's not too expensive either as far as the whole deck goes. Um, so I think our total record was six six wins, one loss, two draws. So it was a total of 9 rounds. It's a pretty long day, but overall, I think it was. I think my matchups were really good. I think he was overall very strong, and he did. I feel like overperform um, for generally how much experience I have in the game personally. So I was definitely still pleased with the performance, even though we did miss. We were shy of a top 16 finish. Andrew Duvall was able to lock in a top 16, I think, finishing at like fifth or sixth. From the team though, with a little bit more intricate combo leader um, with the Froppy, but his profile will be on the channel later. But yeah, Rikido, very powerful character. He has the enhanced twice per turn that he can remove a card from your hand from the game, so it does not go to your discard pile. And you can give your attack stun one and draw one, essentially. So because this is a twice per turn, you can use it on two different. What you do is you use it on your first two attacks. So you normally go like 2 attacks minimum per turn, which essentially cycle you a card and tap your opponent out one foundation, which is good because it allows you to keep putting pressure. So typically this type of deck will always have like some pretty big haymakers that you throw at your opponent as you continue to stun them out, and you play cards that already have stun. So you're giving your cards an additional stun on top of the stun that they have already. So that's pretty powerful. And you can play it on 3 different symbols. We played it on order. I haven't tried it on any other symbols. It was just the only symbol that kind of had history or experience as far as like doing well in a previous event. Now he also has a response that after we draw a card during the enhanced step, that the attack gets +1 damage. So not only are you giving your attack stun 1, but you're giving it a small little damage boost. And this damage boost is every time that you draw a card, whether through his effect or through like a draw effect during the battle. So his stats are also very powerful. Typically, characters have a minimum of 5 hand size, and the bigger ones have like 7 hand size. And obviously, the bigger the hand size, the lower the the health. So the trade-off of 6 cards in hand with 21 health is actually really good for a character. Typically, the 7-hand characters, for example, will have 20. So he makes it so that you do see a healthy amount of cards. That way you can continue to have those 2 attacks per turn to get that max value. You can also use his enhance on your opponent's turn to cycle 2 additional cards just in case you don't have like the appropriate blocks in your hand. Every time they attack you, you can essentially cycle twice per turn as well too. So he makes it very easy to see what you need to see typically, or find those attacks, fish for those attacks on your opponent's turn so that you have a good turn coming up. But yeah, that's the leader. Very powerful. I think I'm going to go over the foundations first because the attacks are pretty standard if you're familiar with the deck, and I'm only going over this because I tried to look up deck profiles for him, and I wasn't able to find anything really. I wasn't able to find really anything on him that was solid out there, so hopefully this helps anybody who's interested in this leader or content in general for this game, which is pretty rare. So triple gotcha. I'm going to start with the foundations based on their difficulties. So these are like 0 cost cards, so your cheaper cost cards. This was at 4. We played 3, just because we play a lot of zeros. I think we play, typically in a deck you want to have like 8 zeros. I think we play 11. I like having a lot of zeros if you can draw a lot of cards, because that means on your turn 1 you can set up with like 4 or 5 foundations, which is ideal. There was a lot of times that I was setting up 5 going second, or setting up 4 going first, and that was only really possible because of the high number of zeros that we played. And they all have generally pretty, like, they don't have the worst block zones. This being a 2 low is really powerful. So it's not only about the difficulty, it's about the block zones too. So this card was particularly useful against other stun decks. It being committed during the enhanced step, essentially giving +1 or -1 speed to an attack. So you can trigger this yourself with one of your haymakers, the 1.3 volts, to give it additional speed, or you can, against other attacks, just slow them down incrementally, so that you give yourself a chance to block. But in general, I think that this is a pretty good overall solid card. Next for the zeros, we played 4 Desperate Times. This one was the one that had the worst block zones, being a 3 high. But its effect was the most powerful for sure, especially against the mirror match, which I expected a lot of people to play this guy. It pretty much is a response. That means, just like Gotcha, it doesn't use the enhanced step. It's kind of just like an effect that happens as soon as, the conditions are met. That way you can get an enhance on top of that afterwards, which is pretty cool. So this pretty much reads, if your opponent draws any amount of cards during the enhanced step in general, you can flip this, and they have to commit a foundation. So typically against a lot of like the aggro decks in this format, they're drawing, they're cycling through cards on their attacks or through their foundations in order to continue chaining and building like very heavy aggressive attack sequences. So as they try to dig, you're slowing them down by removing their resources essentially, so that they don't have as many, they don't have as many resources to continue, attacking you. Or even if they do, they risk checking bad and kind of tapping themselves out and dying on the crackback, because of how powerful our character is, as far as like tapping your opponent out and doing stuff like that. We can also trigger this offensively with one of the attacks that we play, which I'll mention later. You can make your opponent draw a card during the enhanced step, so that you can use this, on your turn as opposed to your opponent's turn. But typically, if I have a chance to do it on my opponent's turn, I always will. Depending on the moment in the game, there is such thing as using these effects too early, so you really have to gauge it out. To round out the 0 difficulty cards, we played Requesting Assistance, and this card, he has Sato on it, so obviously you already know it's good. It's funny because we play a lot of Denki cards and a lot of Sato cards, so it's funny how thematic this deck kind of is, and stays true to the theme, really. This card is enhanced. You can flip it if you have 1 or more momentum, which we do play guaranteed ways of not only are our attacks very fast, so they're very easy to go into momentum because they're very hard to block. High speed equals very hard to block. But we also have cards like Electric Jolt that immediately will deal some amount of damage and go to the momentum anyways. So because we pretty much are able to always connect an attack or two, this essentially becomes an extender or a defender. It essentially becomes flip, untap a foundation that hasn't been ready during the combat phase. So really good card, honestly. And the block zone at 2 mid is not bad either. Okay, that's it for the 0 difficulties. Now we get to the 1 difficulties. Calling for backup. This card, the block zones, is probably the worst thing about this card. 3 mid is kind of bad. All the 3 modifiers are pretty bad, but regardless, this card is very good on your turn when you're attacking. It essentially says flip it, draw a card, and give your attack +1 damage because of our character leader card. Every time we draw a card, we bonus. So this is really good to, it could be offensive or defensive, honestly. You can use this defensively to cycle a card, just in case, you really need to find that, all-important block. Or you can just use it offensively to just draw the card. Use it as your first enhance, so you can draw a card, if you use it as, you know, the second enhancer later, then you do end up discarding a card, which doesn't become as good. I don't think I ever even use that effect if I had to discard a card, essentially. So next for the 1 difficulties. This one's also pretty bad because it's a 3 mid. But essentially we were never really blocking with any of these foundations, the tape or the calling for backup, but they are overall just very powerful foundations in general that you always want to build out. This one giving you a lot of defensive stability. It can make your opponent's attack into a mid. Now, we were not playing Plus Ultra. This card's exceptionally better with Plus Ultra. So I would probably cut like one of these, honestly, going forward. But it's still pretty useful to, if you have 2 of these out, you essentially make your opponent's attack a mid, and then you flip the other one to give it -2 speed. So that's a cute little interaction that you can do if you ever have multiple of these out on board. But other than that, this card didn't really do a whole lot for us. The thing is, the thing about this game too is that almost everything has a mid block. It's very hard to find like high block cards and low block cards. So like every deck will be heavily concentrated on mid blocks. So by making it a mid block, even if you don't have Plus Ultra, you still make it easier to block in general. So like tape is pretty clutch. I just think it's like one of those cards like Gotcha that doesn't really demand a full playset. Next is Self-Sacrifice. This card actually came in like super clutch for me, and I saw a lot of people like play like 2 copies of this, and I was like, why? They were playing like 1 or 2. Honestly, this card is mandatory 4 of, simply because it's block zones. 1 low is just ridiculously good. Low blocks are generally very hard to come by, and this is a lot to do with like the deck building and like what, you know, what symbols you're in and what different card pool you have access to. But essentially, Order has a bunch of 3s, and because you need to have like good defense and not die to this super aggressive decks like Ochako and Froppy, that makes this card even better. This also has the upside of being able to go for game. I actually was able to go for game twice with this card if it wasn't for the so typically on your kill turn, on every attack enhance, you just use this, and then you just start like killing off your foundations that you've already used during the combat to continue to buff your attacks. And because your leader's also buffing your attacks on every draw, it's making like all your attacks get +2 or +3 in general, because like if your attack has a draw trigger, then leader buffs it, then leader uses his effect to cycle a card to buff it, and then you self-sacrifice to buff it again. And because they're very fast attacks, like it starts getting out of hand. So self-sacrifice is actually pretty insane. Also, good against decks that are playing deadlock cards. Most decks don't play any deadlock cards, but like essentially, if you have too many foundations, you can get punished for it, and that's a good way of not getting punished. Bonds of Friendship was honestly, this card was the best block. Obviously, a 1 high. I mean, like anything that says 1 up here is really good for blocks, but it may not be very good to build. So this was not a very good card to build. I don't think I ever used it for its enhance. I just try to keep this in hand so that I can block and have defense. But other than that, and he's the 6-check. Yeah, 6-check is actually insane. Like this number right here means you can go deeper in your attack sequences the more you have of these in your deck, because it'll just give you extra resources off the top so that you can not have to tap out offensively or defensively, honestly. That's it for our one difficulty cards. Now we're getting to our 2 difficulty cards. Shock Treatment. This card was insane. It's unique, which is why we're only playing 2. But 2 is a perfect number. It's also got a 2 mid-block modifier, which is pretty good. It essentially says, discard a momentum, commit one of your rival foundations, which you choose, by the way, because a lot of the times, like, there's a lot of these cards that say your rival commits foundations, or your rival does X. This one just says you get to do X, so you get to, like, choose that pesky card and tap it. That way they don't do anything with it. And then you can also destroy this card to commit a foundation as well, too. So, now you can destroy it to commit one on your opponent's turn, or you can, on your turn, you can do the discard a momentum, tap one, and then destroy it, essentially. But this is also on every attack. So there were times that I had like 2 or 3 momentum, because my attacks were like unblockable and stuff. And I was able to do this, like, I would give my attack stun 1, then I tap him out with this, then I'd stun 1 on the attack, so I'm like tapping them down 3 or 4 times per attack, so. This card is really good, just in general. Natural Leader is another 2 difficulty card that we played. This one, also 2 block modifier high. Honestly, that's part of the reason why it made itself into the main board. Honestly, I wouldn't have played this card if the modifier was like a 3 or anything else but a high. Like I said, the card pool is just very limited right now, so sometimes you're just playing things for the stats, but this card did come in clutch against, it just comes in clutch against like wall clings and like just pesky foundations on the other side, irrefutables, just things that you need to shut off for the combat so that your opponent doesn't use them to, stop you from killing them. It's pretty good. I never used the first enhance, so it was just like the second enhance. Also, when we side into Tenya, you can use this as a first enhance to shut off some of their foundations that they might want to use offensively. Because typically it just shuts down defensive foundations, but with Tenya you're able to shut down offensive foundations. Creepy, this was at 4, I cut it down because it's a 3 modifier, which is awful. It's also a 4 check, which is pretty bad considering all the attacks have 3 checks. This being a 4 check is just like, terrible. We also played a lot of 2s, so I didn't want to. It was essentially like, it was supposed to be 4 creepies. We just ended up cutting 2 creepies for 2 natural leaders because of the block zones. But this card was great, honestly. It's really good against a mirror match. It's really good against Ochako. Not so good against Froppy because they kick out their card pool. And it's really good against both Ochakos, actually. What else is it? It's good against a lot of decks. I think it was even good against All Might to a point before they do the whole. Oh, this was really good against Bird Tokoyami, I think it is. But yeah, no, the card's great. Oh, I also killed somebody with this. You can use this offensively. So if they go like block, then this essentially becomes tap it plus 2 damage to your attack. It was good at 2, honestly. It's not. You don't really need more than 2. There was a time that I had 2 against. I had 2 against Ochako, and I made his Gale Force Punch 0 attack, which was fun, after he plus ultra'd it. Oh shit. What the hell? 3 Heroic Lineage. This was 4. You just don't need 4, honestly. This is fine as a 3 of. Like I said, there's a lot of 2s in this deck, so you gotta pick and choose. It was either 4 of this or 4 Passing the Torch. And I went with Passing the Torch just because it helps me dig deeper into my deck, and I was like playing 66 cards, I think it was. But yeah, this card's pretty good. I mean, it honestly didn't put in a lot of work for me, but I do like the card in general. It's just a very powerful card, and because all our cards get extra speed, this makes it pretty incredible to go for game out of nowhere. Then, for rounding out our 2-drop foundations, was Passing the Torch. Whoa. So Passing the Torch is essentially like Pot of Greed sometimes, or at worst, draw 1. So this card's way better than the 1-drop one because I can use this anytime during the enhance step, and I committed to draw a card. So I can use this offensively, defensively, as my first enhance, second enhance, third enhance, doesn't matter, and our leader is going to buff every time that we draw a card during the enhance step. So this card in general was pretty solid. I was playing 3 at a point, but I was like, it feels really bad when you don't see at least one of these. So there was like a few times that I was able to draw 2 also. Like you can go super aggressive, play down all your foundations, and then pass the turn with like 1 or 2 cards in hand. You'll go block, then use this, draw 2, just in case your opponent's continuing. Or you can use it that way so that you can like find better cards to start your turn with, because then at the beginning of your turn you can discard a card before you drop to your hand size, so you're like digging deeper for a good next turn essentially while your opponent's playing. So And the final card, 4 Sticky Balls. Sticky Balls was actually insane. I literally played a Sato player that just was like, yeah, I'm not playing Sticky Balls. And I was like, what? I was like, how are you even here? Um, I can't imagine playing this card without this. I mean, playing this deck without this card. It's literally good against every single deck. I was just using it to flip it. And yes, it does have unique. So what I would do is, as soon as I saw one, as soon as my opponent started attacking me, I would just like flip it, and then the next turn I would build another one, and then I would flip it. Then next turn if I saw another, if I was lucky enough to see 3, I would do the same thing. But I would always assume that I'm gonna find this card because I'm cycling so much. So I would always flip it. I mean, there's some rare scenarios where you can use it to like -4 speed, which is still freaking insane. But the best part was just like clogging up my opponent's card pool so that they could stop attacking me past the turn. I could kill them. You can also use it offensively if you're really just trying to kill them, which I did do to make their blocks infinite harder. Okay, let's start with the attacks. 3 setup strike. I think 3 was fine. I don't like. So I went from, I saw people playing 4, and then I was like, F it, let's cut it. Like I want to play the kick instead. And then I was like, all right, let's try 2. And then I was like, I kind of want to see 3. Like this card is pretty damn good, giving your next attack +3 speed. I also a lot of times use the discardable momentum to give this card +3 speed. The biggest thing that sold me is that it's a 4. It's a 4 difficulty, so it's pretty cheap. And it's a 2 mid block, which is actually a pretty good block as well too. So yeah, this card's really good because of the Wombo combo. Wombo combo is you play this, you can or cannot give it +3 speed if you want to, and then the next attack is +3 speed. So then you hit him with the haymaker here. This card's friggin' busted. So it's already got stun 1. So you hit him with a stun 1, then your leader gives this another stun 1, so it's essentially a stun 2 card. Then you can tap one of your foundations, hopefully gotcha. If you tap a gotcha offensively, then this attack will get +1 speed. So there's your +1 speed on top of the +3 speed from the setup strike. So now you got 7 speed total. You tap them out 3 because the stun 2, the attack before this, so you stunned another one, so you stunned 1, 2, 3, 4, you stunned 4. He's got +4 speed essentially. And because you tapped at least 4 cards, he's going to get a +4 damage buff. And that's assuming that they literally just had 0 foundations tapped to start with. So yeah, this card was routinely hitting for like anywhere from like 12 to 16 is the highest I got it to damage. Oh, you're also drawing a card, so it's getting the +1 buff off that as well too, because off leader. So yeah, no, this card was incredible. It's too good. Then it's funny how we're playing all these Denki cards and Sato's here like best friends with Denki here, so really plays to the flavor of this deck. Then we play 4 Electric Jolt. This is the way that you get for sure momentum, so that you can do your requesting assistance and stuff like that. This card's also really good in momentum because in momentum you can flip it to commit 1 rival foundation. So this adds to the stun. This also already has stun, so you can play this and stun 2. And then what you do on your next sequence is you're gonna play 2 attacks, which will stun them 2. Plus, if your attack has stun already, you're stunning them there. Then you can use this to stun them another one. So it gives you just a free stun out of nowhere on your opponent's turn or your turn actually, which is really good. And it only flips it, so it flips it in momentum, so it's kind of like free. And then you can like use the momentum for something like this. So you would go this, you lead with this, then you go next turn this, flip your momentum here to tap them out 1, stun them here, stun them with it. I mean, you stun them with this, and you stun them with this, and then you set them up for this, and that's another stun 4. So you go stun, and they're dead. But yeah, super good card. I don't know if I would play 3. I think 4 was fine. Then we have a kick package. So these cards are essentially just here because they're very fast cards, and they give damage and speed buffs to our other cards. So this card, for example, makes our next kick attack +2 speed and +2 damage, and it has an enhanced to draw card. So because it has an enhanced to draw card, this attack will immediately get it's immediately a 4/5 with stun 1. So this card was really solid because we play 2 other kicks. So we play this kick, and then we play this kick, which this one was the best kick. This was hands down the best kick. So this card is insane for a few reasons. One, he's got a 1 mid block, which is insane for an attack. 2, he's a 4 difficulty, which is extremely cheap for an attack. 3, he has the ability to cycle you 1 card, which is what your leader does. It says discard a card, draw a card. Then, on the discard, he automatically gets minimum 2 speed, and if you discard an attack, he gets +4 speed. So this guy essentially reads as 5 base because your leader is going to buff him off his ability alone, and if you use leader, he goes to 6. Then he can essentially become 8 speed or 6 speed, both of which are extremely fast in general. So yeah, this card, and I mean, if you combo it with this, right, then you're making the base of this 6/6, then you're drawing 1, so that's 7, and then you're adding another 2 speed, which can be 8, so this can be like an 8/8 or 8/7 or whatever, which essentially says take the damage, right? And then to round out our kick package was the Reciprocal Acceleration kick, which honestly I probably would have played 2 of in hindsight. Probably played the other kick. I forgot what the name was, but I think I have it here. Probably would have played. Oh no, I don't know where it is. But yeah, the other kick. There's another kick. That's good. That I probably would have played instead of this kick. Well, not instead of it, but like, just play 2 copies of this. The main general reason is if you draw this card without another kick, I don't think you can even use it. I never even attempted it, so I don't know, because it's a combo kick and it has a combo enhance. So in general, this card's not very good without the combo enhance anyways, which is why I never played it, but I'm fairly certain you can only play this card as in sequence to another kick. Essentially, it reads combo enhance. Your opponent discards a random card, which is good because sometimes they keep like attacks to kill you with, or they keep a certain block because they know what you're gonna hit them with. So it kind of like hits them with some type of like RNG randomness. Also lets you trigger desperate times. So this in combination with this, you can offensively tap them out because you're making them draw during the enhanced step. 2, which is the main reason why this card is good, is because you can remove kick attacks from your card pool, in addition to discarding momentum to play for this card's attacks for the EX. So the EX normally is a keyword that says you have to remove a momentum to give it that much speed. So essentially EX2 means remove 1 momentum, gain 2 speed. And you can do that up to 2 times. So technically if I had 2 momentum, I can remove both momentum to give it +4 speed. But because how the normal sequence would look like, you would go attack number 1, attack number 2, attack number 3. This removes both of these from the game and adds 2 speed for each one of them. So it becomes an 8 speed. So that becomes obviously very hard to block. And yeah, that's why it's good. It also clears your card pool too. So like if you start the turn with this, then you clear these. Now you're back on progressive difficulty 1, and you can just continue to like chain attacks. Then you can go like, if you're super savage, you can go right after that. You can go set up strike into Volt, and yeah, super dead at that point. But yeah, that is it's just this is a combo card, so that's why I think like just seeing 2 would be fine. And it wasn't a card that was killing my opponent either. I mean, it's like got 6 damage, and it goes maybe up to 7, and that's it, really. You know, it's still pretty high base damage, but it's not crazy when you really think about it. Removing the card pool is probably the most important part about that card. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's look into the sideboard, because this is where the spice was, and people were like, yo, this is crazy. And shout out to Andrew Duvall on this one. He had the idea to side into him. He essentially makes it so that you have a good matchup against Froppy, I think it is. Yeah, Froppy. Yeah, is it Froppy? Yeah, it's Froppy. Okay, so the game plan was side into this guy, and then side into 4 copies of Fulfilled My Duty. And the idea is that this guy essentially gives you the first enhance every time, even on your opponent's turn. So because you have first enhance, as soon as they play an attack that does like a bunch of stuff, then you just sack a Fulfill My Duty and then pass them to the next attack. So because Froppy's doing all this stuff in the enhanced app, their attacks are doing a bunch of stuff, their foundations are doing a bunch of stuff, you take all that away from them, all the while sticky balling them. So you go sticky balls on their first attack, and then on their second attack you can Fulfill My Duty, and then now they're hit with progressive where they normally won't be, and they can't really kill you. So that's how I was able to beat Froppy consistently, whereas that would normally be a pretty terrible matchup from my experience. So we sided essentially 4 copies of Fulfill My Duty. This also came into effect against All Might, because against All Might or any Earth deck really, they play It Can't Be Fixed and a bunch of like anti-stun hate, and obviously this deck is all built around stun. So you have a way of like pivoting into like not having to rely on stun as much, which honestly Rikido going first can probably push through all the stun hate, but like going second it's much more difficult. Then we played just one of Grasping Tape Toss. This is against those Earth decks as well too. They like to build a lot of foundations. They like to do It Can't Be Fixed. They like to do the manly possession, manly passionate guy and stuff to like just scale their foundations. And then this has like one of the best deadlock enhancers in the game, and it's a throw. It does unfortunately have stun one, but you know, it is what it is. And then we played for What's Their Plan. What's Their Plan was against Ochako. It also came in against All Might to rip their momentum. It was just against decks that were trying to do like, they were trying to like combo extend based on their momentum using as like an extra hand. So there's a lot of decks that were just like super aggro, and they're just like momentum and cycle it and draw it and do all this stuff, primarily Ochako essentially. And this was just wreck them, because you just flip and both players scatter momentum. I didn't use any of the other options. I suppose you can, but it seems pretty risky unless you know the contents of your opponent's hands. Probably really good against, probably pretty good in the with the tape guy, because you get to thought seize them, and then. But yeah, and you're just doing it to rip momentum. So my game plan was I should be good against every deck except for Froppy and Ochako, and that's what we had answers to, both in full capacity in our sideboard, and that was pretty much it. He's also really good going second too. Rikido's not as good going second, but this guy was pretty good going second. Makes the first attack also essentially unblockable with +3 speed, and if your opponent does any enhances during that attack, then they have to commit a foundation every time that they do that. So, but yeah, that was pretty much it, guys. I hope you guys like the profile. If you guys want to see more My Hero content on the channel, please let us know. And until next time, stay gaming.